I always believed that funerals revealed more about the living than the dead, but nothing, absolutely nothing, prepared me for the way my family turned on me that morning. There were more than 300 people inside St. Albans Chapel, soft hymns playing, white lilies everywhere. My father-in-law, Raymond Ellington, lay in the casket, dressed in the navy blue suit he loved. I had been his caregiver for 6 years, his companion at doctor appointments, the one who cooked his meals, checked his medication, held his hand at night when he couldn't sleep. And yet, when I stepped forward to place a single white rose on his casket, my daughter-in-law Claire stood up so fast her chair crashed to the floor. Her voice exploded through the chapel. "You're not a widow, you're a gold digger." The crowd gasped. She marched toward me, finger shaking in my face. "You just want his house. You want his money. Stop pretending you loved him." I froze. Before I continue, I want to thank the channel Buried by Family for giving me the space to share my truth. If this story resonates with you in any way, please take a moment to like this video. It truly helps more women find the courage to speak. Now, let me tell you what really happened. Every eye in that chapel turned toward me, judging, whispering, taking sides they knew nothing about. And then my son's wife, Claire, did the unthinkable. She grabbed my purse, ripped it from my shoulder, and threw it onto the floor. "Search it," she screamed to everyone. She stole documents from the family safe. Someone pulled out a phone. Another began recording. I felt the world tilt beneath me. My own daughter-in-law calling me a thief, while I stood beside the man whose last years I had devoted my life to. Then my son Evan didn't defend me. He didn't stop her. He simply stepped aside, avoiding my eyes, like I was something shameful, like I deserved it. My knees weakened, not from embarrassment, from heartbreak, because they had no idea what I knew. They had no idea what Raymond had left behind. They had no idea what Claire and Evan had already stolen. They had no idea that the truth, the whole terrible truth, was inside a locked wooden box hidden in Raymond's bedroom. A box only I had the key to. A box full of letters. Letters no one else had ever read. Letters that would burn every lie Claire had just shouted. Letters that would reveal who really loved that man in the casket, and who only loved his money. While the entire chapel watched me fall apart, I whispered to myself, "Raymond, forgive me, but it's time they all know." People think that humiliation happens instantly like a slap, but mine began weeks before the funeral, quietly, like a slow leak under a floorboard. Raymond had been declining for months. Some days he remembered my name, some days he didn't, but every night, when I tucked him into bed, he held my wrist and whispered, "Thank you, Maggie. They don't know what you do for me." They meant his son, my late husband's brother, and my own son, Evan. Both came to visit only when they needed money. Neither came when Raymond fell, or when he couldn't breathe at night, or when he cried because he thought he was dying alone. I was the one who stayed. Always. But to Claire, my daughter-in-law, that devotion was something else entirely. Jealousy, possessiveness, suspicion. She started making comments in early November. "You spend more time with him than with your own family. You know he's not your father, right? Old people get confused. You shouldn't be alone with him so much." At first, I ignored her. But then, she began entering Raymond's room without knocking, opening drawers, asking strange questions, and one evening, I caught her doing something that sent a cold wave through my spine. She had gloves on. She was checking the metal box under Raymond's bed, the box he had told me never to let anyone touch. I stepped into the doorway and said, "That box is locked for a reason." She didn't flinch. She simply smirked. "Everyone knows he wrote a new will. Don't pretend you don't." I kept my voice calm. "Whatever he wrote, Claire, it's between him and his attorney." But she stepped closer, too close, her perfume sharp and artificial. "No, it's between him and the rightful heirs, which isn't you, rightful heirs." As if love had rules, as if caregiving had a price tag, as if presence could be measured only when a man died. That night, after she left, Raymond called me to his bedside. His voice was thin, but steady. "They'll come after you when I'm gone, Maggie." I pressed his hand. "Raymond, don't say that." He shook his head. "Promise me something. Anything." His eyes glistened. "When the time comes, you open the box, only you, and only in front of them." I swallowed hard. "What's inside?" He gave a broken smile. "Truth, 6 years' worth." I didn't know then what he meant. Not fully. But days later, when he passed quietly in his sleep, And when Claire and Evan began whispering behind closed doors, and when Raymond's attorney called me with a strange urgency, I learned that truth is heavier than any inheritance, and sometimes people would rather bury it than face it. After Raymond died, the house felt wrong. Too quiet, too tidy, too watched. The morning after the funeral home took his body, I woke up at 5:30, out of habito for 6 years. That was the time I checked his breathing, his medication, his water glass. Now, his room was empty. I stood in the doorway for a long time, holding the frame, as if the wood could hold me up. His slippers were still beside the bed, his reading glasses on the nightstand, the metal box still under the bed, the box only I had the key to, hanging from a thin chain around my neck. I knelt and touched the box, cold, heavy, full of something I wasn't ready to see. Downstairs, I heard voices, too early for condolences, too sharp to be grief. I went down quietly. The kitchen light was on. I stopped in the hallway when I heard Claire. Her tone was low but vicious. "We have to get ahead of her, Evan. Your grandfather was confused. He could have signed anything." My son's answer came tired, but weak. "We don't know that he changed the will, Claire." She slammed something on the table. "You really think he didn't? After all that time she spent alone with him?" She played nurse, Evan. "And you know what widows do when they smell inheritance." I felt that like a slap I couldn't defend. My own son didn't say a word to defend me. He sighed instead. "What do you want me to do?" She lowered her voice, but no sufficiente. "The safe in his study. Your uncle said the old will is in there. If there's a new one, we need to see it first." I froze. They weren't just suspicious. They were planning to open, to take, to control, to erase whatever Raymond had decided. That afternoon, while family came and went, offering casseroles, empty hugs, and half-hearted condolences, Claire moved around the house como se fastona, rearranging chairs, closing doors, smiling too sweetly when someone important was looking, especially Raymond's brother, Leonard, who made no effort to hide his disdain for me. At one point, Leonard put a hand on Claire's shoulder and said, "You're the strong one here. This family will need you when it comes to decisions." She saw Rio like a politician. I watched from the hallway, holding a tray of untouched coffee cups. They were building an alliance over a man they barely visited when he was alive. That evening, the call came. I was in the kitchen, rinsing plates, when the phone rang. I almost didn't answer, but something in me knew. "Hello, Mrs. Ellington. This is Daniel Hargrove, Raymond's attorney." His voice was grave, but not cold. My heart tightened. "Yes, Mr. Hargrove. First, my condolences. Your father-in-law thought highly of you." That alone almost made me cry. But then his tone, "Madhu, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest with me." I swallowed. Of course, has anyone tried to access the house safe, or his personal documents, since he passed? My fingers tightened around the phone. I pictured Claire, the gloves, the study door closed, Evan following her like a tired shadow. Yes, my own voice shocked me. "They've been whispering about the will. They don't trust me." There was a pause on the other side. I suspected as much. I frowned. "Why?" He exhaled slowly. Because Mr. Ellington called me 2 months ago and said exactly this: "When I die, she's the one who will suffer for what I decided. Protect her." My throat closed. Protect her. Raymond knew. He always knew who they were. Mrs. Ellington Hargrove continued, "Under no circumstance allow anyone to remove documents from that study. If they try, you call me or call the police." I almost laughed bitterly. "You realize this is their family home. To them, I'm just the widow who stayed." "To the law," he replied calmly, "you are the person named in his final instructions. And I can tell you this much. Whatever is in that locked box under his bed is central a cold wave passo pelo male corpo." So Raymond had told him about the box, too. "We'll read the will after the funeral," Hargrove said. "But be prepared. They won't like it." I closed my eyes. "I already know they don't like me." "Not you," he corrected. "They won't like the truth." That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in my bed staring at the ceiling, replaying the last month. Claire finding reasons to criticize how I took care of Raymond. Evan avoiding conflict at all costs. Leonard's hand on my shoulder, heavy and false. "You'll be taken care of, Maggie. As long as you don't expect too much." As if affection had been a negotiation. As if years of cleaning, lifting, feeding, bathing, and comforting could be measured in percentages. At 2 in the morning, I got up. I walked to Raymond's room, in the dark, barefoot. The moonlight came through the thin curtains, touching the metal box like a small, quiet spotlight. I sat on the floor, ran my hand over the lid. The key hanging around my neck felt heavier than ever. I could open it now, read everything alone, arm myself before the war. But his voice came back to me. When the time comes, you open the box, only you, and only in front of them. I whispered into the empty room, you were always stubborn, Raymond. A tear slipped down my face, but I put the key back under my blouse. I wouldn't open it, not yet. If they wanted to tear me apart in public, then they would learn the hard way that not every stage belongs to them. Sometimes, the truth also needs an audience. The morning of the funeral felt heavier than grief. It felt like anticipation, like the air itself was waiting for something to go wrong. When I stepped out of the car, dozens of heads turned. Some stared with pity, some with suspicion, some with that poisonous curiosity people carry when they smell scandal. Claire walked ahead of me, holding Evan's arm as if she were the grieving widow, and not me, the woman who had spent 6 years lifting Raymond out of bed, washing his clothes, holding his hand through tremors and nightmares. Her black dress was too tight, too glamorous for a funeral. Her expression too composed. A performance, always a performance. When someone important approached, a community leader, one of Raymond's old friends, anyone with influence, Claire would suddenly tilt her head, soften her eyes, and speak in a trembling voice. He was like a father to me. The lies slid off her tongue like silk. Evan didn't correct it. Of course he didn't. He stood there, stiff, ashamed, trying not to look in my direction, because deep down, he knew Claire didn't love Raymond. He knew she hardly knew the man. He knew everything she did was a strategy. He just didn't have the courage to admit it. Inside the chapel, 300 people filled the pews. Soft organ music, white lilies everywhere. The air smelled of incense and tension. As I walked down the aisle, whispers followed me like shadows. Is that her, the widow? I heard she lived off him. No, she manipulated him. No wonder the family is upset. Not one of them knew the truth. Not one had been there the night Raymond collapsed in the hallway and I held his head so he wouldn't hit the floor. Not one had been there during the seizures. Not one had been there when he cried because his own son wouldn't return his calls. But everyone felt entitled to judge. I reached the front, placed my rose on his casket, and whispered, I'm here, Raymond. I won't let them rewrite your life. I felt someone watching me intensely. Not with tenderness, with calculation. Claire. She stood to the side, arms crossed, lips pressed into a thin line, eyes hungry, waiting. The service began. The pastor spoke about integrity, devotion, and unconditional love, the exact qualities Raymond embodied and Claire lacked. Then came the moment everything shifted. The pastor said, if anyone would like to share memories of Raymond Ellington. I stepped forward, not because I wanted attention, but because I couldn't let Claire's narrative define everything he and I had lived. The moment I opened my mouth, Claire's heel slammed on the marble floor as she stood up abruptly. The entire chapel turned toward her. Her voice cracked through the silence. Stop pretending. Gasps, murmurs, phone screens rising. She pointed at me with the fury of someone who had been waiting weeks to strike. Tell them the truth, Margaret. Tell them you were digging through his documents. Tell them you're after the inheritance. I felt my heart pound, but I didn't speak. The silence only fueled her. She stepped closer, eyes blazing. You think you deserve something from this family. You think you can steal what belongs to Raymond's bloodline. My knees weakened not because of the attack, but because Evan didn't stop her. He didn't step between us. He didn't defend me. He didn't even look ashamed. He simply lowered his head. And that betrayal cut deeper than Claire's words. Claire grabbed my purse from my shoulder and hurled it onto the floor. Check it, she screamed to the crowd. Go ahead. She took documents from the safe. The chapel erupted. People stood. Phones recorded. Whispers turned to accusations. A woman I'd never met said, this is disgusting. But she wasn't talking about Claire. She was talking about me. Humiliation is a physical sensation. It pulls your lungs tight, burns your cheeks, blurs your vision. As I knelt to pick up my scattered things, Claire smirked. Look at her. Not even her own son stands with her. And she was right. Evan didn't move, not an inch. I reached for my purse, and my fingers brushed the small key around my neck, the key to the box under Raymond's bed, the box Claire didn't know about, the box she feared, the box that held the truth that could tear her perfect performance to shreds. I stood slowly, wiped a tear from my cheek, and whispered, "Raymond, I'm ready, because humiliation is only the beginning." And Claire had no idea that the very thing she feared most was already set in motion. They forced me out of the chapel. Not physically, no one dared touch me after the outburst, but emotionally, socially, cruelly. People parted down the aisle the way they would for a contagious disease, eyes looking away, mouths whispering, phones still recording, as if my humiliation were a spectacle God Himself had scheduled. Outside, the cold air hit me like a punishment. I stood on the steps, my purse still half open, my belongings scattered inside. I felt like a ghost, a woman erased. That's when I heard a voice behind me. "Mrs. Ellington." I turned, and there he was, Daniel Hargrove, Raymond's attorney, tall, gray suit, expression grave but undeniably kind. He didn't look at me with judgment. He looked at me like a man who already knew the truth and was waiting for the rest of the world to catch up. He picked up my wallet from the ground and handed it to me. "I saw what happened." I swallowed hard. "Then you saw them destroy me." He narrowed his eyes. "No, I saw them reveal their desperation." I blinked. Desperation. He nodded calmly. "People don't scream accusations in a chapel unless they're terrified of something coming to light." The words settled inside me like a seed that would soon take root. Before I could answer, the chapel doors opened again. Claire emerged first, chin high, eyes glistening with fake tears. Evan followed, his jaw clenched, refusing to meet my gaze. Behind them, Leonard spoke loudly to a group of guests. "It's heartbreaking what she tried to do to our family. Heartbreaking." He made sure I could hear. He made sure everyone could hear. I saw Claire lean into an older woman and whispered, "Just pray for us." She never cared for Raymond. She cared for the estate. The woman nodded sympathetically. The performance continued. Daniel Hargrove stepped closer to me and said, quietly, "Mrs. Ellington, listen carefully. Do not confront them. Do not respond to anything they say. And under no circumstances allow them access to Raymond's documents." My fingers instinctively touched the small key under my blouse. He noticed. His voice lowered even more. "You have the box." I nodded. His expression softened, not with sympathy, but with respect. "Good. Protect it. It contains everything." Before I could ask what everything meant, Claire strode toward us, venom in her smile. "Oh, how sweet," she said, folding her arms. "You found someone to comfort you." Daniel's tone didn't change. "Mrs. Ellington doesn't need comfort. What she needs is legal protection." Claire's smirk faltered. Just a fraction, but I saw it. The first crack. Evan stepped closer, voice low and harsh. "Mom, why didn't you just walk away quietly?" The question was a knife, not because he asked it, but because he meant it. I whispered, "Because your grandfather asked me not to." Claire scoffed. "Oh, please, Raymond barely remembered who you were at the end." Daniel cut in sharply. "That is both false and legally dangerous to claim." Claire froze. For the first time, I saw something real behind her mask. Fear. The pastor stepped out to call everyone back inside. The service had resumed without me. People flowed past like I didn't exist. Evan didn't look at me. Leonard pretended not to see me. Claire whispered one final dagger. "This isn't over." Daniel responded in a tone cold as steel. "No, it isn't." She turned away. He watched her leave, then turned back to me. "Tomorrow morning," he said, "come to my office. Bring the box." My heart pounded. "What's in it, Mr. Hargrove? What did he leave?" He held my gaze with a quiet gravity that made my breath stop. Proof. About who truly cared for him, and who used him. He placed a gentle hand on my shoulder. "Mrs. Ellington, Raymond trusted only one person to guard the truth." I didn't have to ask who. I already knew. Me. I arrived home after the funeral with the kind of exhaustion that doesn't touch the body, only the soul. The house was silent. Too silent. The kind of silence that carries someone else's breath inside it. I walked through the living room slowly, scanning, listening. Nothing seemed out of place, until I reached Raymond's study. The door was open. He never left that door open. My stomach tightened. I stepped inside, and the air felt wrong, disturbed, violated. Papers were scattered on the floor. The desk drawers half open, the safe door slightly ajar. Someone had been here. Someone searching for something. Someone trying to erase me before morning. I whispered to myself, Claire. Evan too, probably. But Claire was the mind. the appetite, the hunger. I moved toward the safe. Empty. The original will, gone. Raymond's medical folders, gone. Receipts, letters, financial records, all taken. They had stolen the documents they accused me of stealing. The irony would have been almost funny if it didn't break me so deeply. On the carpet, I spotted a strand of blonde hair, Claire's hair, long, straight, chemical blonde. A second strand, darker, Evan. They had done this together, mother and son. No, wife and husband. My son belonged to her now, to her lies, to her world, to her manipulation. My legs weakened. I sat on the edge of the desk and put my head in my hands. They weren't just trying to shame me. They were building a case, a story, a world where I was the villain, where I was the thief, where I was the outsider who corrupted an old man for his money. If they controlled the documents, and if they controlled the narrative, they could erase me completely. Then I felt something cold against my chest. The key. Raymond's key. The key to the box under his bed. The one they hadn't found. The one they didn't even know existed. My breath steadied. My spine straightened. They had taken everything they could manipulate, but they didn't have the truth. Not the truth Raymond chose. Not the truth he trusted me with. Not the truth he wanted revealed in front of everyone. I stood up, locked the study door, closed every window, checked every room. Then I went to Raymond's bedroom. The box was still there, untouched, waiting. I knelt on the floor and rested my forehead against it. You knew this would happen, didn't you, Raymond? In the silence, I felt something, a presence, a memory, a whisper. Protect yourself, Maggie. I opened my eyes. Not the box, not yet. I slid it into my arms and carried it to my own room, placed it under my bed, locked my door. For the first time since he died, I felt something close to hope, because they had taken documents, but they had not taken proof. They had humiliated me, but they had not broken me. They had turned the entire town against me, but they had no idea what Raymond had written, recorded, and sealed inside that wooden chest. Tomorrow, at the attorney's office, the war would begin, and for once, I wouldn't be entering it alone. I barely slept. Every sound that night felt like a threat. Footsteps on the porch, a car passing too slowly outside, a door creaking with the weight of memory. But morning still came, cold, gray, sharp as a blade. I placed the wooden box inside my tote bag and left through the back door, afraid Claire or Evan might be watching the driveway. I wasn't being paranoid, I was being realistic. When someone tries to erase you once, they rarely stop there. Daniel Hartgrove's law firm sat on the corner of a quiet downtown block, brick building, tall windows, the kind of place where truth feels heavier. He greeted me himself. For the first time since the funeral, someone smiled at me without pity. Not gently. Not apologetically, with respect. Mrs. Ellington, you brought it. I nodded and placed the box on his desk. My fingers trembled, not from fear, but from the weight of everything inside. Daniel examined the lock. Raymond didn't choose this box lightly. It's reinforced, custom-made. Then he looked up at me. Are you ready to see what he left? I wasn't, but I nodded anyway. My hand slipped under my blouse and pulled out the key. I fit it into the lock. It clicked. A small, simple sound, but it echoed through the room like a gunshot. I lifted the lid. Paper. So much paper. Old envelopes, tied with string. Receipts, medical notes, bank statements, photographs, a small black audio recorder, a sealed envelope with my name on it. Daniel's eyes widened. This is substantial. I swallowed. Raymond said it was truth. Daniel picked up one stack, carefully, respectfully, and began to skim. His jaw tightened. His brows pulled low. He exhaled slowly, as if absorbing something shocking. Mrs. Ellington, these documents show 6 years of caregiving expenses, all paid by you, not by his children. He flipped through more. Home modifications for safety, prescriptions, physical therapy, food, private nursing when you needed a break. He looked up. You didn't just care for him emotionally. You kept that man alive. My eyes burned. I hadn't expected validation. Not like that. He reached deeper into the box and pulled out another bundle. Letters, all addressed in Raymond's handwriting. He untied the string and opened one. His expression changed sharply. These letters, these are to his children. I frowned. What did they say? He hesitated, almost as if reading them might hurt me. But I nodded, letting him know I wanted the truth. Daniel read aloud. Evan, I wish you would come see me. Margaret is here every day. She feeds me, she bathes me, she keeps me company. You haven't called in 6 weeks. My heart twisted. He opened another. Claire, please stop asking me about the inheritance. While I am alive, I need care more than money. Margaret is providing that care. And another. Leonard, I know you don't like Maggie, but she is the only one helping me. Do not pressure her. Do not take document from my study without her knowing. Daniel looked at me. These letters are a timeline of negligence from them and devotion from you. I pressed my fingers to my lips. I didn't want revenge. I didn't want to be right. I just wanted someone, anyone, to acknowledge what I had done for Raymond. Daniel reached into the box again and pulled out the small audio recorder. This could be important. He turned it on. A crackle, a beep. Then, Raymond's voice, weak, shaky, but still, undeniably him. Maggie, if you're hearing this, it means they're trying to take everything. Don't let them rewrite what happened. Don't let them erase you. My chest collapsed inward. He continued, you were the only one here, the only one who stayed, the only one who cared. Don't let them lie about that. I covered my mouth as tears spilled. Daniel paused the recording. Silence filled the room, not empty, but full of truth, full of evidence, full of justice waiting to be delivered. He leaned back in his chair. Mrs. Ellington, this is devastating. I nodded, wiping my face. Claire and Evan stole documents from the safe. He didn't look surprised. Then we have 2 crimes, tampering and unlawful possession of estate records. He closed the box gently. And tomorrow, when I read the will, this will crush everything they've built against you. I inhaled, shaking. Daniel, what exactly did Raymond leave? He paused, not secretive, thoughtful. I can't tell you until it's read publicly. I swallowed. Then he added something unexpected. But I can say this. Raymond didn't reward blood. He rewarded loyalty. A knock interrupted us. Daniel stood and opened the door slightly. A secretary whispered something urgent. His expression sharpened. He closed the door and turned back to me. Mrs. Ellington, someone tried to get into the building while you were here. My heart froze. A woman, mid-30s, blonde, angry. Claire. Of course it was Claire, he continued. She asked if you were meeting with me and demanded to be let inside. I felt sick. She said she needed to correct the record. Daniel locked the door. It's beginning, Mrs. Ellington. I sat straighter. For the first time since the funeral, I didn't feel small, or ashamed, or alone. I felt ready. The next morning I woke with a strange feeling in my chest. Not peace, that would come later. Not fear, I had moved beyond that. Something closer to purpose. I dressed simply, tied my hair back, and placed the wooden box inside my bag. Then I looked at myself in the mirror. For the first time in days, I recognized the woman staring back. Not the humiliated widow. Not the outsider. Not the scapegoat. Just me, Margaret, the woman Raymond trusted. When I arrived at Daniel Hargrove's firm, the sidewalk was already crowded. Not with reporters, not yet, but with family members. Leonard, Evan, and Claire, pacing like a predator in a too tight black dress. The moment she saw me, her expression sharpened. You have no right to be here. I walked past her without answering. Because the truth is, if someone screams about rights before anything even happens, they know they're guilty. Leonard blocked the doorway. Maggie, let's avoid making a scene. I raised an eyebrow. The scene happened yesterday. Leonard, you and Claire created it. He stiffened. Evan stepped forward, eyes hollow. Mom, please don't do this. Leave now. We'll handle the estate. That hurt. Not because of the words I'd heard worse, but because he truly believed them. He truly believed Claire. He truly believed I didn't belong. But before I could respond, the door opened from inside. Daniel stood there, tall, steady, authoritative. Mrs. Ellington is the primary beneficiary. She enters first. The world stopped. Claire blinked. Leonard's mouth dropped open. Evan whispered, "What?" I stepped inside. Daniel closed the door behind me, leaving them outside, stunned, humiliated, and terrified. And oh, how the audience will love this moment. The room was wide, bright, lined with shelves of law books that smelled like dust and justice. As I sat down, Daniel placed the wooden box in the center of the table. Its presence alone changed the air. He looked at me with quiet certainty. "You're going to need strength today." I nodded. "They're going to attack you again. But this time, you're not alone." He walked to the door. "Let them in, Claire barged in first, her smile too white, her expression too fake, her confidence too loud. Evan followed, looking sick. Leonard came last, shoulders stiff, pretending to be calm. They took their seats across from me, as if preparing for a battle. Daniel sat at the head of the table. His tone became official, cold, immovable. "This is the reading of the last will and testament of Raymond Ellington." Claire crossed her arms. "Finally," Daniel continued. "Before we begin, let me clarify something. Mrs. Ellington," he nodded to me, "was appointed by Raymond as the sole protector of his personal documents." Claire scoffed. "How convenient." Daniel didn't flinch. "Raymond predicted you'd say something like that." He opened the wooden box slowly, deliberately, and placed the letters on the table. Silence hit the room, heavy. I watched their faces. Curiosity, confusion, fear. Daniel unfolded one of Raymond's letters addressed to Claire, and began reading. His voice was calm, but the words were bullets. "Claire, I do not trust you with my affairs. You ask about my inheritance more than you ask about my health. Your concern is not family, it is money." Claire went pale. "Evan," whispered Claire. She glared at him. He was confused. "That letter means nothing." Daniel calmly opened a second letter. "Evan, you have abandoned your responsibilities. Margaret has been the one caring for me, feeding me, taking me to every appointment. Your neglect hurts more than my illness." Evan swallowed hard. He looked like a boy again, lost, ashamed, afraid. Daniel pressed play on the recorder. Raymond's voice filled the room, weak, breathing heavily, but resolute. "If you're hearing this, it means they are trying to take what does not belong to them." Claire stiffened. Raymond continued, "Margaret is the only one who has been here, day after day, night after night. She has given me everything they refused to give: time, effort, love, dignity." I felt tears burn my eyes. But Claire broke. "Turn that off." He didn't know what he was saying. Daniel paused the recording and said, "This is dated 3 days before his death." His mental clarity was evaluated and confirmed by 2 doctors. Claire froze, dead still. Everyone knew what that meant. Legally, morally, emotionally, this was the truth. Daniel unfolded the final document. "To my daughter-in-law, Margaret Ellington, the woman who stood by me when no one else did, I leave my home, my land, and my assets." Leonard inhaled sharply. Evan's face collapsed. Claire whispered, "No, no." Daniel continued, "My children and grandchildren, having neglected me in my greatest need, are to receive nothing." Silêncio tão absoluto que parecia sagrado. Claire, finally, exploded. "This is fraud." She manipulated him. She, Daniel, raised a hand. "Claire Thompson Ellington, you unlawfully entered this home after the death of its owner. You removed documents. You tampered with evidence." He laid a police report on the table. "You are under investigation." Her jaw fell. Leonard stood up in fury. "This is outrageous." Daniel answered calmly, "No, this is justice." Evan just cried. For the first time since he was a child in my arms, Claire lunged toward me. Not physically, but with words sharp as glass. "You think you won. You think you deserve an eye of this." I looked at her steadily. Not victorious, not vengeful, just honest. "I didn't earn anything, Claire. I cared for him. You didn't." She stared at me as if the truth itself had slapped her. And in that moment, their entire world cracked. The moment we walked out of the conference room, it felt as if the entire building had shifted. Claire stormed into the hallway first, makeup smudged, chest heaving, fury radiating out of her like heat. Evan followed, numb, pale, avoiding everyone's eyes. Leonard slammed the door behind him and hissed, "This isn't over, Maggie. A court will overturn this." Daniel stepped beside me and replied, so calmly it enraged them, "No court reverses a will authenticated by 2 doctors, a notarized witness, and 6 years of documented neglect." Leonard's face turned a shade of purple I didn't know humans could reach. Claire spun toward me. "You ruined this family." I met her eyes. Not with anger, with truth. "This family was ruined long before I arrived. Your greed just exposed the cracks." Her mouth trembled, not with sadness, but with rage she couldn't weaponize anymore. Because now the room knew. Now the law knew. Now everyone knew. She could scream. She could stomp. She could claw at the air. But she couldn't rewrite the truth. Guests from the funeral, people who had whispered lies, filmed my humiliation, judged me without knowing anything, were waiting outside, and they saw it all. Evan crying, Claire shaking, Leonard shouting. Daniel walking beside me with the calm certainty of a man who had just delivered justice. I heard someone whisper, "So, she was telling the truth." Another woman touched her chest. Poor Maggie. She took care of him all alone. A man who had glared at me at the funeral lowered his head in shame. It didn't erase their cruelty, but it mattered, because humiliation echoed, and so did vindication. The moment Daniel and I reached the sidewalk, Claire rushed toward me again, as if chaos could still save her. She pointed a trembling finger at my face. "I'll go to the police. I'll tell them you brainwashed him." Daniel simply raised an eyebrow. "You were seen entering the home after his death. You removed documents, that is breaking and entering, tampering with evidence, and obstruction." Claire froze. "He finished, and Raymond left written proof that he feared exactly this, from you. I suggest you get an attorney." She stepped back, just one step, but it was enough to say, she had lost. Evan finally approached me, slowly, cautiously, eyes full of regret. He didn't know how to carry. "Mom," I waited. He didn't finish. He just cried. Not loudly, not dramatically, quietly. The way boys cry when they realize they betrayed the only person who ever loved them without conditions. I placed a hand on his cheek. Not to forgive. Not yet. Just to acknowledge that he was still my son. "Evan, life gives us chances to choose again." He closed his eyes, and I knew he had a long, painful journey ahead. But it wasn't mine to walk. When I arrived home, the sun was setting behind the oak trees. The house didn't feel hostile anymore. It felt waiting, like it knew it had a new purpose. I stepped into Raymond's bedroom, the bed neatly made, the window open, the air warm, soft, familiar. I placed the wooden box on his dresser. Everything he left me, the letters, the proof, the truth, had done exactly what he intended, not to punish them, but to free me. I whispered, "Thank you, Raymond." That night I sat at the kitchen table with a cup of tea cooling in my hands. The house was silent, but not empty. For the first time, I realized something. This place didn't have to be a battlefield. It could be a refuge. I thought of the women I'd met over the years, widows abandoned by their families, mothers discarded by ungrateful children, caretakers forgotten once their duty was done. Women like me, women like Raymond's late sister, who had died alone, women who needed a home, a community, a safe place to land, a place where their stories mattered, where their truth mattered, where they mattered. I lifted my teacup and whispered, "Maybe this house isn't ending something. Maybe it's beginning something." Right as I said it, a warm breeze moved through the hallway, the kind that feels like someone unseen walks by with a smile. And I swear I heard Raymond's voice. "Do what you always did, Maggie. Care for people." I closed my eyes and exhaled. Yes, I knew exactly what this house would become. Not a monument to the Ellingtons, not a trophy of victory, but a home for women who had nowhere else to go. A place where forgotten lives could bloom again, an inheritance transformed into healing. For weeks after the reading of the will, the house felt different. Not haunted, not heavy, just open. As if Raymond had left not just bricks and wood behind, but space. Space waiting to hold something meaningful. I spent the first few days cleaning, not because it needed cleaning, because I needed it. Every sweep of the broom felt like brushing away years of disrespect. Every window I opened felt like letting truth breathe. Every room smelled more like home, and less like the battlefield Claire had tried to turn it into. One morning, while sorting the linens in the guest room, I found one of Raymond's old notebooks. Inside it, on a single page, he had written, "If Maggie stays in this house, others will be safe here too." I closed the notebook and placed it against my heart. He had known me better than anyone. The idea came softly at first, a whisper, a memory of the widows I'd met at the community center, older women, abandoned by their families, women left with nothing after decades of caregiving. Women who stayed quiet for too long. Women like me. On a Tuesday morning, I called Daniel. "I want to open the house." Open it how? Not as a monument to Raymond. As a home. A safe place for older women who have nowhere else to go. He didn't hesitate. He would have loved that. And so, I began, slowly, room by room, preparing spaces not for guests, but for survivors. Women who needed a bed, a meal, a conversation, a place to feel human again. I didn't advertise. I didn't post signs. I simply told one person at the senior center. And that was enough. Because women carry news like prayer, quietly, respectfully, with purpose. Her name was Joanne Pratt, 72 years old. She stood on my porch with a small suitcase and a trembling lower lip. My daughter said I was too much trouble to keep. I opened the door. "Then this is where you stay," she cried. Not loudly. Just a small, broken exhale that said she had been holding pain for too long. I showed her the room at the end of the hall, the one with the morning light. She placed her suitcase on the bed and whispered, "No one has welcomed me in years." I touched her hand and said, "Welcome home." That was the beginning. More women came, widows, divorced grandmothers, women waiting for someone to notice they existed. And I noticed. Raymond's house changed. It softened, it glowed. It filled with laughter, fragile at first, then full-bodied, with knitting needles, with stories whispered over tea, with the smell of cinnamon rolls in the morning, with the comfort of lives finally being honored. And I found something I thought had died in me. Joy. Word spread through town. Most people supported the idea. Some didn't. Women whispered admiration at the grocery store. She turned her pain into purpose. Men murmured regret. We misjudged her. But not everyone softened. Claire tried to twist the story. She spoke loudly at church events. "She's using the house to manipulate lonely women." People listened politely, but fewer and fewer believed her. Because truth echoes, no matter how slowly. Evan visited once. He stood at my porch like a stranger. His voice cracked. "Mom, I'm sorry. I let her convince me you were the enemy." I nodded. "Healing is a path. Walk it." He cried again. Not for me. For himself. And that is how I knew he wanted to change. Leonard never came. He never apologized. Some men die inside long before their bodies follow. Weeks later, while reorganizing the wooden box, I found something I hadn't opened, the envelope with my name on it. The handwriting was shaky, but still Raymond's. My hands trembled as I unfolded the paper. "Maggie, if there is pain, let it become a bridge. If there is loneliness, let it become a door. If there is injustice, let it become a seed. You have always taken care of those the world forgets. My last wish is that you take care of yourself too. And then, when you can, take care of them." I pressed the letter to my chest as tears slid down my face. Not tears of grief. Tears of recognition, of purpose, of closure. The Ellington house is no longer a symbol of inheritance. It's a place of rebirth. Every evening, women sit at the dining table, playing cards, telling stories, praying, laughing. The walls don't echo with accusation anymore. They echo with healing. Sometimes I walk through the hallway alone and feel Raymond near. Not as a ghost, as gratitude. Not because I inherited his house, but because he entrusted me with something far more important. A mission, a home, a legacy of compassion, a truth that survived humiliation. When Claire screamed at me in that chapel, she thought she was burying me. But what she really did was plant me, and I grew. And so did this house. And so did the women who knock at my door, one by one, carrying their broken stories in trembling hands. The world tried to shame me, erase me, call me a thief. But in the end, I wasn't buried by family. I was reborn by truth. And every woman who walks through my door, reborns a little too. And that's how my story ends. Not in humiliation, but in truth. Tell me in the comments, what would you have done in my place? I want to thank Buried by Family for letting me share this part of my life. This channel needs your support to keep bringing stories like this one. So please click subscribe. That way, more women will find the strength to share their truths here too. On your screen, there's another story you may like, and the button to subscribe.